Previously on Perihelion, the threshold tremor came in the 4th hour, 11 seconds. 12, 13. Dot said, "That's it." K said, 48 hours. Bess was already at the ship. The window is open. The clock is running. Everything they have built, in 2 years of survival, in 14 years of waiting, comes down to what happens next. 22 hours into the 48-hour window. They chose not to wait for the middle of it. Dot said, "Don't wait." K agreed. Bess was already pre-launching when the discussion happened. The camp was empty now in a way it hadn't been since the Meridian 7 crashed. Everything useful had been stripped and stowed aboard. The fire pit was cold. Let die deliberately. The first morning in 2 years, it hadn't been lit. May's garden glowed softly in the pre-dawn dark, the bioluminescence dimmer than it was, but present. Still here, still itself. Minty was the last one out. She stopped at the edge of the cleared area, the space where the fire had been, and stood for a moment. She took Zola's drawing out of her jacket, looked at it. The figure, the purple sun. "I know where you are," in a 7-year-old's handwriting that was now 2 years old. She folded it carefully, back inside her jacket, against her chest. She turned toward the ship. She did not look back. She had decided, a long time ago, not to look back. The 6 of them. The ship was close around them. 5 berths and 1 added, the cabin stripped to essentials, every weight calculated twice. The air had the quality of held breath. Bess was at the pilot station, running the final sequence. Her checklist, the one she had carried for 2 years, was folded in her breast pocket. She didn't need it anymore. She knew every item by heart. Kay was at the systems panel, monitoring the fuel delivery. The integrated system she and Dot had solved. The pressure and housing reading each other in real time. It was running clean. She watched the numbers with the focused calm of someone who had prepared for this moment for so long that the moment itself felt almost quiet. Dot was at the secondary navigation, the position Bess had created for her in the redesign. She was reading the atmospheric data, her eyes moving across the readings with the pattern recognition of someone who had watched this planet's behavior for 11 years. May was at the environmental station, reading Draken's final state. The tremor data, the vent activity, the atmospheric composition changes that marked the collapse accelerating. Her data told her what they already knew. The window was open, and the planet was not waiting for them to be ready. Iola was in her berth with her log open. She was writing. She would write through the entire launch. She had written through the crash, and she would write through the departure, and that was who she was. And the ship was no place to be anything other than who you are. Minty was at the structural monitoring station. The ship's bones, the integrity readings, the systems that told you if the thing you were flying was still holding together. She checked the 6th berth mounting one more time. Then she sat. She was ready. "Final systems check," Bess said. "Call out." "Fuel delivery nominal," Kay said. "Atmospheric window confirmed open," May said. "Weak zones at bearing 047 and 231. Recommend 047. 047, Dot said immediately. "Yes." "Structure nominal," Minty said. 6th berth secured. "Documented," Iola said without looking up from her log. Bess almost smiled. "Ignition in 60 seconds. She put her hands on the controls. She breathed. From outside, the Meridian sitting in the clearing that had been a crash site, that had become a camp, that had become a home they never intended. The garden at the edge, the cold fire pit, the workshop where Bess built something from nothing, the processing station where Kay turned an alien world's bones into fuel. The engines began. A sound that was new to this world. A human sound, a built sound. The particular voice of a machine that was imagined and then made real by people who refused the alternative. The meridian rose. Slowly at first, as if testing whether the planet would let her go. Then faster, the clearing falling away beneath her, the tree line, the basin with its mineral veins, the source of everything that had made this possible, the ridge where they had mapped the planet, the northwest quadrant where May had named 47 species. Dracone from above was beautiful. It always was. Vibration, the kind that starts in the hull and lives in your spine, the atmosphere pressing back, the engines answering. Bess flew with everything she had, not fighting the planet, angling toward the weak zone at bearing 047, threading the atmospheric layers the way Dot had marked them. Upper atmosphere boundary in 90 seconds, May said, reading. Gravitational resistance increasing, within projected range. Fuel delivery holding steady, Kay said. Bearing correction, Dot said, watching her display. Left 2 degrees. Left 2, Bess said. 60 seconds to boundary, May said. Mid-frame showing stress within tolerance, Minty said. Hull panels nominal. Iola's voice, only for the log. We are leaving. After 2 years and 4 months on a planet that had no name until we gave it one. We are leaving. I want to describe what this feels like, but I find I don't have the words yet. I'll find them later. That's what later is for. 30 seconds, May said. Come on, Bess said quietly to the ship. Come on. 10, 9, 8. The boundary, a shudder unlike the others. Then, the stars. Space. Open and infinite, and theirs. Upper atmosphere cleared, May said, barely above a whisper. And then, the ship slowed. The engines were running, the fuel was burning, but the velocity was wrong. The momentum that should have been carrying them away from Draken was not. Gravitational resistance is, Kay said, reading fast. That's not right. That reading should be dropping as we clear the zone, and it's... We're not climbing, Bess said, feeling it in the controls. We are climbing, at 0.3 of the projected rate. Kay, I see it. Are we going to clear? A pause that was too long. At current rate, no. The planet filled the viewport below them. Fuel consumption at this rate gives us 17 minutes of burn at current thrust before we're into reserve, May said, running numbers. And then? Bess asked. And then we fall back. Nobody spoke. What do we do? Minty said, completely level. The weak zone at 047 isn't weak enough, Kay said, working, running calculations, crossing them out, running them again. The collapse has altered the field distribution. Our data was 14 hours old when we launched. Can we reach the second zone? 231. Fuel cost to reposition, she calculated. We'd have almost nothing left for the actual exit burn. 12 minutes of reserve, May said. We built this ship for one exit burn, not 2, Bess said. I know, Kay said, very quiet. And then Dot spoke. She had been silent until now, watching the gravitational field data with absolute focus. I know what to do. Everyone looked at her. I need the navigation console, she said, directly to Bess. I need the navigation console. What I'm going to do, you won't understand it until it's working. I need you to trust me. The same way you trusted my weld. The same way you trusted my configuration. I need that. Now. Bess looked at her, at the controls in her hands, at the planet filling the viewport below them. She looked at Kay. Let her, Kay said, without hesitation. Bess took a breath, the hardest thing she had done on this ship. Okay. She moved her hands from the controls. Hold current attitude, Dot said, already moving to the primary console. Don't correct for anything I do unless the hull is breaching. Understood, Bess said from the co-pilot position. May, give me real-time gravitational field distribution. Every second. You have it. Kay, I'm going to ask the engines for everything. All thrust, all at once. You need the fuel delivery to handle a full power surge without fluctuation. 30 seconds, Kay said, already moving. Dot put her hands on the console, the fluency of an engineer returning to what she was. You pulled us in, she said quietly, to the ship, to 11 years of watching this planet. Now you're going to push us out. The ship pitched, down. We're descending, Minty said, gripping her station. I know, Dot said. Dot! Bess's hands didn't touch the controls. I know. The planet rose in the viewport. Closer, closer than it had been when they launched. Altitude decreasing, May said, her voice tight but steady. 200 kilometers, 180, 150. Now, Dot said to Kay. Full thrust, now. The engines roared. Everything the Meridian had, every joule of the fuel Kay had refined from Draken's own ground, every calculation Kay had run across 9 months, every modification Dot had made to the delivery system, all of it at once. The ship fell toward the planet, and then it didn't. The gravity that was pulling them down was also, at this angle, at this velocity, with this much thrust, pulling them around, a curve. The physics of it were ancient and precise. Fall fast enough towards something massive and it will sling you away from itself. The planet filled the viewport. Then it swept. Then it dropped. Then it was behind them. Altitude increasing, May said, barely audible. 200, 300, 500. We're through the equatorial zone, Dot said, watching the field distribution. Gravitational resistance is dropping, May said, reading. It's dropping. 800 kilometers, 1,000. We have momentum, Bess said, taking the controls back, feeling it. Yes, Dot said, stepping back from the console, exhausted, certain. 2,000 kilometers, 2,500. Gravitational resistance at 12% of surface value, 8%, 4. The planet below was small now, getting smaller. We're out, May said. Her voice broke just slightly. For a moment, no one moved. Then Minty made a sound, not a word, something more fundamental than a word, and put her face in her hands. Not crying, just done holding it. Bess leaned back in the pilot seat and looked at the ceiling of the ship she had built and said nothing. Kay put both hands flat on the fuel console and breathed. Just breathed. May was watching Draken recede on her display. She touched the screen gently, tracing the outline of the planet. A goodbye she did not say out loud. Iola did not stop writing. Dot was standing very still, looking out the viewport at open space. Space she had not been in for 14 years. Her face, the Draken-changed face, the adapted eyes, the bioluminescent undertone in her skin, was doing something complicated. Something that was not quite relief and not quite grief and not quite wonder. Something that contained all three. How did you know where to fall? Kay asked her quietly. I watched it for 11 years, Dot said, still looking at space. The field distortion around the equatorial zone during collapse. I ran the calculations so many times. In year 7, when I tried to launch my own vessel, I didn't have enough thrust to complete the curve. I came back down. I always knew if I ever had enough thrust. She stopped, looked at Kay. Your fuel, your ship, that's what made the difference. Your math, Kay said, the smallest smile, the one that had been coming back piece by piece since the night Minty gave her a name. Our math, Dot said, small in the black, moving, Drakon behind them, getting smaller, Eden Beta ahead, somewhere in the distances that space keeps. Minutes later, Bess was running the navigation, working out the trajectory, calculating the burn schedule for the journey home. The course to Eden Beta was clear. Their fuel, even after the slingshot's full power burn, had margin. She stared at her display. "We have a problem," she said. "What?" Kay said from her station. "The most efficient trajectory to Eden Beta," she paused, "runs through the Kessler field." "The debris field," Kay said, going very still. "The survey charts listed it as moderate, but the charts are 14 years old and Expedition 7 Gamma." She stopped, looked at Dot. "We passed through the edge of it on the way in," Dot said. She knew what was coming. "It's not moderate anymore." "What is it?" "Dense, fast-moving, unpredictable at the center." "If we go around it," May began, running the alternative routes. "Fuel cost?" Kay asked. "We don't have it. Not enough margin." "There's no around," Bess said, already knowing. "No," May said quietly. "We go through," Bess said. "We go through," Kay confirmed. "Then we go through," Minty said. She was past afraid. The field was visible on May's display as a dense mass of readings, irregular and fast-moving, a region of space that had forgotten how to be empty. Dot was beside Bess at the navigation console. They had been working in their wordless way for 20 minutes. Dot reading the field's movement patterns, Bess reading what Dot pointed to, building a path through something that didn't want to be paved through. "Give me the entry vector," Bess said. Dot marked it on the display. Bess angled the ship. "Bracing for impact," Minty said. "Everyone secure?" "Field entry in 30 seconds," May said. "Delivery nominal," Kay said, holding the fuel system steady. Iola wrote quietly, for the log. "Day. I have lost count of the days. It doesn't matter. We are between two things. Behind us, a planet that pulled us in and changed us and gave us 2 years we didn't choose and couldn't give back. Ahead, everything we've been fighting toward. In between, this." 10 seconds, May said. "Hold on," Bess said. "Impact, not one piece, many. A continuous percussion against the hull, some small, some not." The ship shuddered, the lights flickered. Something in the midsection made a sound that wasn't in any checklist Bess had ever written. "Port panel, section 3, stress fracture. Ceiling," Minty said, already moving before the words were done. "Dense cluster ahead, bearing 090, May said. "Left," Dot said to Bess. "Hard. Hard left?" Something large scraped the hull, a scream of metal that everyone felt in their teeth. "Surge on the port injector," Kay said. "Compensate with the starboard primary," Dot said without looking. "I have it." "Second fracture, aft section," Minty called, sealing the first, moving to the next. "Cluster clearing," May said. "Debris density decreasing at..." Another impact, larger. The ship pitched. Iola's log slid off the surface she was writing on. She caught it. She kept writing. "May, talk to me," Bess said, flying on pure instinct. "Density still high. Center of the field is..." She read her display. 300 kilometers. 300. 250. Dense all the way through. "Hull integrity at 81%, Minty called from the aft section. "Sealing, moving, steady. Holding." "What do you see?" Bess said to Dot. Dot was watching the field pattern. She had been watching debris fields near Drakon for years, the physics of them, the way they moved and clustered and opened. Her eyes moved fast across the data. She marked a path. "There," she said directly to Bess. "Follow the thinning at bearing 045. It won't feel right. It goes toward the dense center before it opens. Trust it." She trusted it. She angled toward the dense center. The impacts increased. The hull screamed. The lights cut to emergency. Minty was everywhere. Sealing, bracing, holding the ship's integrity together by knowledge and will, and hands that had been building things for 2 years. 150, May said, watching. 100. "Come on," Bess said through her teeth. 50 kilometers to edge. A major impact. The cabin lurched. Something failed in the navigation array. Bess felt it in the controls. the loss of precision, the ship going from responsive to approximate. Navigation array is... I have it, Dot said immediately, taking the navigation display. I'll read the field. You fly what I tell you. Tell me. Right. 15 degrees. Right. 15. Hold. Hold. Left. 5 degrees. Left 5. Hold. The impacts were lessening. Still present, but lessening. 20 kilometers, May said, reading. 15. 10. Hull integrity at 74%, Minty called from the aft section. Still holding. 5 kilometers. One last impact. Sharp. Personal. Something in the port side that would need to be looked at when there was time to look at things. Field edge, May said. Her voice went very quiet. And then, nothing. No impacts. No percussion. No hull screaming. Space. Open, clean, infinite space. The debris field behind them. Eden Beta ahead of them. Nobody spoke for a long moment. The emergency lights, the damaged navigation array, the 74% hull integrity that was still enough. The ship that had been built from wreckage by people who refused the alternative, still flying. There you are, Bess said to the ship. This time she didn't keep her voice low. She let it be what it was. Minty came forward from the aft section. Her hands were marked from the work, the sealing and bracing, the holding together. She sat in her station. She was the kind of tired that lives on the other side of something enormous. We're out of the field, May said very softly. We have margin, Kay said. Enough. Trajectory to Eden Beta confirmed, Dot said, working with what was left of the navigation array. Travel time at current velocity, she calculated. 82 days. 82 days, Iola said. She looked up for the first time in the entire field passage. I have enough paper. Small, battered, moving. The field behind her. Eden Beta ahead. 82 days of open space. The hull bore what it had been through, scored and patched and marked by every piece of debris that had tried to stop her. The navigation array ran imprecise. 74% of what she was when she launched, which was not 100, but was enough. She had always been enough. She was moving. That was everything. Later, the others were asleep. All of them, finally, all at once, for the first time in the field passage. The ship was quiet. Iola stood at the viewport, looking at space. She opened her log. She had found the words she was looking for. She wrote, Day Unknown. Somewhere between Draken and Eden Beta. The field is behind us. The ship is holding. I have been writing this story for 2 years, 4 months, and some number of days I stopped counting when counting became less important than living. Here is what I know. Kay Coleman calculated our way through every problem this planet threw at us. When she ran out of answers, she trusted someone else's without hesitation. That is a harder thing than calculation. That is the hardest thing. Bess Queen built a ship from wreckage and alien timber, and the absolute refusal to accept that it couldn't be done. Then, at the moment it mattered most, she took her hands off the controls and let someone else fly. I watched her do it. I don't have words for how much that cost her, or how much it meant. May Carroll named 47 species on a planet that doesn't exist in any record. She ate the first alien plant alone so the rest of us could eat. She never stopped being curious about the dark, not even when the dark was trying to kill us. She said goodbye to a planet she loved by documenting its final state faithfully and letting it go. That is grace. I want to have that kind of grace. Minty Ross held us together for 2 years by the sheer force of who she is. She talked to a daughter who couldn't hear her every single night. She put Zola's drawing against her heart the day we left, and she walked forward without looking back. She is the reason I know it's possible to carry something that heavy and still keep moving. Dot Vaughn, Dorothy Vaughn, Chief Engineer, Expedition 7 Gamma, presumed lost. Waited 14 years for a window and a ship and 5 women she could trust. She helped us before we knew she existed. She fixed what we couldn't fix, saw what we couldn't see, fell toward a dying planet at full thrust so we could slingshot out of its grip. She taught me that patience is not the same as giving up, that waiting for the right moment is not the same as missing it. I am Iola Bell. I write things down so they don't disappear. I wrote all of this down. We don't know what we'll find at Eden Beta. We don't know what the system that pushed us out here will say when we come back with Dot, with proof of what was lost and what was found and what was left behind without anyone going to live. We don't know what we'll say to the people who were waiting. We don't know if all of them were still waiting. We know we are going. We know we held. We were 5 and then we were 6. We crashed on a planet with nothing and built something from it. We survived what was thrown at us, and we named the things we found, and we kept the fire going every single night. I don't know if that's enough. I think it might be everything. She closed the log. She looked out the viewport. Space. Just space. The stars that are always there, the infinite patient dark, the distance between where you are and where you're going that is enormous and crossable. The Meridian moved through it. The ship, small against the stars, moving forward,